Sonny Nelson is the director of media affairs for the Trump campaign, and she's joining me now. We were just talking off the air about how busy this week is going to be for you and everyone associated with literally every political campaign that's ongoing right now.
That's right. Thank you for having me. I have to confess, I was complaining a little bit that I was slightly tired, but I know that what I'm going through right now is absolutely nothing compared to what President Trump is doing. He is nonstop. I have a very hard time keeping up with him, but we are so close. 8 days until the election, so we are going, as fast as we can, reaching all of the states, taking President Trump's message to every single voter.
So I want to talk about the rally at Madison Square Garden. You were there in New York yesterday, but it's amazing. This guy is pushing 80 years old and 35, 40 years older than me, and certainly much older than that compared to you, and does go from early in the morning when he gets on social media to late in the evening when he's done with his last rally. And I was talking to Mark Lauder last hour about the Joe Rogan interview. He sat down with Rogan for 3 hours, which is I do a 3-hour show every day, but I get commercial breaks. I go to the bathroom. I can grab some water. That's a marathon interview.
That is exactly right. I mean, his energy is amazing. He does not stop. And I think really he is just fueled by his love of our country. I think he truly loves our country, and he wants us to be all that we can be. He knows our potential. Under his leadership, we had record low unemployment. Inflation was at zero. We were the leader of the free world. We were the country, the greatest country in the world. And of course, we still are the greatest country in the world, but we're starting to spiral out of control because of Kamala Harris and Joe Biden's policies that are just wreaking havoc on everyday Americans. So President Trump is truly not stopping. I mean, we saw him going for a super long rally yesterday. I joked that the Madison Square Garden was the rally of all rallies because we had a star-studded lineup of pre-programmed speakers. The energy in that room was amazing. The people of New York were so fired up to hear President Trump. And I think it's because they truly are suffering from Kamala Harris's policies. People, even in deep blue New York, historically blue New York, are fed up with her policies. They're horrible for the American people. And President Trump has given them an option this November.
The rally yesterday was 7 hours long, and that didn't even include a Beyonce performance.
That's right. Well, Kamala Harris's rallies don't include a Beyonce performance either, even though it's promised to draw a crowd.
Just more broken promises from Kamala Harris when it comes to Beyonce.
That's right. That is right.
The rally yesterday was remarkable. And what was the vibe like? I mean, we've heard so many stories out of the MSG rally, and it just seemed like an amazing crowd. Thousands of people on the street in New York who weren't able to get into the garden, watching it on big screen TVs, and you could just feel the excitement and energy in support of Donald Trump.
That's right. I was sitting down kind of near where the press pin is, so I was on the floor. And the excitement in that room, every time a pre-programmed speaker came up, everyone was so excited to hear them. I mean, truly, it was like a little mini convention in there. Everyone was there. But what really struck me and what stuck out to me was the people that waited outside that did not get in. When I left, I walked outside after it was over, and there were still thousands of people outside. They had big speakers set up. They had TV monitors set up. And people were watching him on a screen, but they wanted to just be there as close as they could to the president to hear his message. And the excitement was just, palpable. It was unlike any other rally that I had been to. It was so fun.
It struck me as interesting, too, because most Trump supporters, I think, have been reluctant to show their support for Donald Trump in New York City. But they weren't afraid to don the MAGA hats yesterday and be seen walking around.
That's right. I mean, people were leaving the rally after it was over and going to get on the subway wearing all of their MAGA gear. The streets were totally lined with supporters. It was a huge event. And I think, just after seeing a bunch of man on the street interviews, the people of New York are just fed up with Kamala Harris's policies. We're in this situation where both, people have lived through both candidates. The people have lived through the record of Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, and then they lived under the success that President Trump gave just, almost 4 short years ago. They remember what it was like to have $1.87 gas. And they remember what it was like to not have to choose if they wanted to pay their electric bill or if they wanted to put a full tank of gas in their car or if they wanted to skip back on groceries because they had a little extra money in their pocket under President Trump. I mean, look at it beyond the economy. Look at safety. Our border is wide open. New York is really suffering from migrant crime. There's migrant crime surges all over the place. New York is housing illegal immigrants in some of the nicest hotels in the city, and they are housing illegal immigrants, and crime is surging in that city. So I think we see, even though people might have historically voted Democrat, they're changing their mind this go around because that's how bad Kamala Harris is. Her America is not a place of peace and prosperity and freedom and opportunity. It is the exact opposite of that.
We're talking to Sonny Nelson, Director of Media Affairs for the Trump campaign here on the Scott Sand Show. You can find her on social at Sonny Joy Nelson. Sonny, it struck me as odd when this rally at Madison Square Garden was announced, and I kind of criticized visiting a state that Republicans would be unlikely to flip in 2024 as a waste of time. But really, you look at the other aspects of holding a rally in New York, the media coverage that it got, first of all, but secondly, the importance of the congressional races in flipping the House and flipping the Senate in New York.
That's right. Yes, there were, multiple reasons for going to New York. President Trump loves New York. That's his city. He built that city. He created that skyline. So I think New York, of course, has a very special place in his heart, and he wanted to go rally his supporters there. But like you said, New York City is the media capital of the world. The amount of press in that room was in high number. There were a ton of press in there.
Kept you busy, huh? Carry an extra cell phone battery.
Yes, it kept me busy. But, I mean, there were a ton of local affiliates in there. There were this rally was covered in all 50 states. Because it is the media capital of the world, it had down-ballot implications, like you were just suggesting. But the media covered this in all of the swing states. So President Trump's message still was sent to all of these target states that you see him visiting, like he's in Georgia today. He's crisscrossing the map this week. He is, this last week of campaigning, he is going to be going super hard, as he has been for the last several weeks. But he is really just taking his message to every voter, giving them an option, even if they're in blue states.
So, Sonny, what's the chatter inside the campaign at Mar-a-Lago? Are you guys now talking about possibly being able to pull off winning the popular vote as well?
I can tell you that we are focused on winning the vote and earning the vote of every single voter. That's why you see him going to all of these states and taking his message there. Our internal polling, this is something that we released a few days ago, our internal polling shows us up in every single battleground state, which is so key because these national polls, of course, they're great. And, we're leading in some, we're tied in some. President Trump is doing well in these national polls. But our internal polling is something that we really pay attention to because we pay a lot of money for this internal polling,
right,
and we don't pay a lot of money to get lied to. So, we're sampling the correct people. We're really doing a great job of getting a true read of what the American people are feeling and who they're planning to vote for. But that's why you see us doing such a big push with early voting. President Trump has said, vote early, vote by mail if it's legal in your state. Take your friends to vote. We have to turn out the vote because it has to be too big to rig. So President Trump is, of course, doing a big get out the vote push this week.
I want to get back to that in a second. The polling numbers are interesting because Donald Trump is always underpolled. In 2016, 2020, the pollsters had him much lower than he actually wound up. And the voter turnout in 2020 was remarkably high. So I wonder if some of the national pollsters may have overcompensated for that and are now overpolling for Donald Trump.
There is no telling what's going on with the national polls. Like I said, we see him up in some and tied in some, which is he is doing better than previous years. And like you said, President Trump has historically underpolled in these national polls. So to see him doing so well has to be scaring the bejesus out of the Kamala Harris campaign. I can tell you if I had a choice right now, I would not want to be in the Kamala Harris camp. The wheels are falling off of her campaign as we speak. we see her doing these desperate rallies with Beyonce's name to try to draw a crowd. In Houston, might I add, Kamala Harris had to go to Beyonce. Beyonce was not willing to go to her, which is an interesting point. I think the enthusiasm for her is so low that Beyonce could not hop on her private jet to go to Kamala in an actual swing state. But yes, I think in terms of polling, we are in a great spot right now. We, of course, as I said, base everything off of our internal polling, and that shows us in a really good spot heading into the election this coming week.
And some of the videos that they're trying to do to attract younger voters, male voters, has been so cringeworthy. To watch Tim Walz and AOC play Sega on Twitch was just weird. And yeah. I don't know if you're much of a drinker, but I can't imagine you taking such a dainty sip of beer at a Michigan bar like Kamala Harris did yesterday.
No, I'm not. But you took the word right out of my mouth. Cringy is exactly what I was going to use to describe it too. Kamala Harris and their campaign, they're flailing all over the place. They're throwing everything at the wall to see what sticks. They have a problem with men, with having support of the male voter bloc. They have a problem. They don't even have a base maintenance problem. They're having a base retention problem because Kamala Harris and Joe Biden's policies have failed every single voter bloc. So we see Latinos and Black Americans leaving the Democratic Party and coming over to President Trump because that's just how disastrous her policies have been. But, of course, you contrast that with the success that President Trump had in his 4 years in office. Every single person, regardless of your standing in society, if, we're middle class, upper class, lower class, you were uplifted by President Trump's policies. And that's what people remember. The media might have a very short-term memory, but the voters do not. And so I think we're going to just see, a movement like we've never seen before. I think it's going to just be a massive, massive win this November.
Sonny Nelson, Director of Media Affairs for the Trump campaign here on the Scott Sands Show. Find her on social at Sonny Joy Nelson. You talked about early voting. In 2016, 2020, so many Republicans kind of rebelled against the concept of early voting, but Republicans now really embracing it and encouraging everybody to swamp the vote, to bank the vote, and get out to vote early.
That's exactly right. And I encourage people to go to swampthevote.com. That's where you can find out how to volunteer, how you could be a poll watcher, anything to do with Election Day if you would like to volunteer in your state. We have some great information there. But yeah, President Trump has been encouraging voters, along with the help of the RNC and Laura Trump and all the great stuff she is doing there. We've been encouraging voters to go and bank your vote. Vote early because you don't know what could happen on Election Day. You could be stuck at work until after the polls close. You could get sick. You never know what could happen on Election Day. So you want to go ahead and vote early. You want to make a plan. You want to execute it. And then you want to take your friends. If you vote early, that gives you time to convince more of your friends to go vote. And we just have to, we have to swamp the vote. We have to make it too big to rig, leave no stone unturned. And the RNC has done a great job with ground game and reaching out to every single persuadable voter. I think we're in a really, really good spot.
So many important down-ballot campaigns, races as well. In Ohio, Senator Bernie Moreno, Derek Merrin, and Kevin Coughlin for Congress. In Michigan, Senate race, Mike Rogers needs your vote as well. Early voting underway in Ohio and Michigan. Get out, bank the vote. Sonny Nelson here on the Scott Sands Show. We were talking off the air. You're home in North Carolina before you head down to Mar-a-Lago. How did you make it through the hurricane? How's North Carolina doing?
Oh, thank you for asking. Luckily, I'm more in the middle of the state, so our house was not hit by the hurricane. But the western part of my state was really, really torn up by this thing. It was very devastating to see. But, President Trump went out and viewed the damage that was done. He provided support. He partnered with Samaritan's Purse. We also partnered with Every Life Diaper, providing the people of North Carolina the supplies and the tangible needs to get through this devastating time because the federal government was failing them. And President Trump saw a need and he stepped in there to be the leader that we needed at this time. And I think that just speaks to his character and it speaks to his heart that he cares for every single American when they face disaster.
Sonny Nelson on the Scott Sands Show. Sonny, get some sleep while you can. It's going to be a busy week.
That's right. I appreciate it. Thank you for having me.